Hey, Sasha, welcome to the GTM Pack podcast. So excited to have you join us.
Hi, Justin. Nice to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I've been following your content and uh, saw some really exciting and interesting things that you've covered on sales enablement. So, being asset mule and focused on sales enablement, we really wanted to have you on. But before we dive into some of these awesome topics, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into product marketing in the first place?
Of course, Justin. So I'm a public relations and advertising manager by education, but I have never worked a day as this PR manager in my career. I've been in marketing for more than 10 years now, and like 5 last years, I've been focusing solely on product marketing. And how it all came about is I started as a sales manager in an advertising company, and I was very successful in selling stuff, but also quickly realized that it kind of gives me panic attacks, to go go on calls with customers, and I was too young to understand how to cope with this. So I realized that I need to move to somewhere else, like product development, and that's where I found how to build products and how to position them and how to differentiate them. But I quickly also realized that I'm missing this creative component of the go-to-market. So I found something in between, which was product marketing. And since then, I have been in this amazing journey. And I started as product marketing manager in health IT company and then moved to Linux and open source database companies. And right now I am a director of solutions marketing at Percona, which is a open source database company based in North Carolina in the USA. And my team and I, we serve around 14 open source products and 4 services products. So we take care of all of these, the three of us, and
Wow.
it's quite challenging, but also very interesting. The sphere, the domain, it's very interesting to overcome the challenges of marketing open source software and services that are adjacent to it.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to dig into that because I know open source has its own unique qualities when it comes to product marketing and marketing in general. But before we do that, I always find it so interesting the diverse backgrounds that product marketers have. And I've talked to a lot of product marketers on this show that come from sales backgrounds and product backgrounds. And I'm curious, you've sort of gone through both those paths, right? So you're a salesperson. Even before that, you had a PR background, which is also really
Yeah.
relevant, I would say, for product marketing as well. But sales, then product development, and then product marketing. How do you think your experiences in those different roles, let's say PR, sales, and product development, even knowing that maybe PR was more educational, right? It wasn't in practice, but going through each of those, how do you think it's influenced your skill set or your approach to product marketing?
Yeah, I think it gave me the biggest skill for product marketer empathy. Everything that you mentioned, like both sales, being a PR manager by education, and product management, it gives you empathy and allows you to look at different stages of the buyer journey and the challenges that the buyers have from different lenses. For example, if I'm talking about the product side, I now know how to better differentiate the product to make sure that people are that we are solving people's problems. I now know how to sell it, and what messaging to bring forward and how to interest people in what we are about to tell them or to sell them. And of course, sometimes I have flashbacks with PR education. I'm like, okay, this is what I was studying for. Like, this wasn't for nothing, the whole theory thing and psychology that we are being taught is very, very important. And another thing that I learned being a salesperson in particular is that how to become an ally to sales. Sales are almost always under served by different departments. They are left to build pipeline, to close deals, and they require more help from fellow PMMs. And I think that's where we are as product marketing managers can make it better life for the salespeople. And I myself put a lot of emphasis on making their lives better by enabling sales teams.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the empathy part is so important, right? Like having been in their shoes as a salesperson. And same thing goes on the product development side, right? Those are two, I think, critical functions that are collaborators with product marketing, or that product marketing has to enable and collaborate with. So being able to empathize and understand from the sales perspective what it's like to be a salesperson, to have a quota, to have to meet that quota every month, every quarter, is really, really important. And then on the other side, to know what the product development process is like, and that sort of anxiety and pressure that's on the product team to get features out, and having that empathy for them. I think you can't ask for a better set of skills, I think, to understand both of those parties. So that's really, really awesome. You mentioned open source, so I really want to unpack that. I've never worked, for an open source company, but I've always been really interested in how marketing and selling open source products differs from, let's say, proprietary products. So I'm curious to get your perspective. What are the key differences when you're selling and marketing an open source product versus when you're selling and marketing a proprietary product?
Yeah, I'd say having experience with both open source and proprietary products, I would say they're not as different as we would think. I would say that we still need proper differentiation. We still need proper features that allow and prompt people to adopt the software, and then buy additional stuff like services or additional enterprise package, or use it as SaaS offering. So there is still needs to be differentiation and the budget also to build awareness. And basically the tactics that you would use promoting the software are probably the same as you would use for the proprietary product. But I would say that it comes with a set of specific challenges having the open source product. So the first one is how to turn open source users into paying customers, and this is the biggest challenge. And I think it goes in line with the proprietary product. If you have a free version, you also need to understand how to push people over the edge of going to the next step. It's just with open source, it's not as easy because people can download your software from GitHub and you will never know who downloaded it. And we sometimes have users of our software that have like deployments all over the place, but they never pay us anything because they have internal teams. They can do this on their own, and it is a big challenge. So how to push them to buy your proprietary version, or to your SaaS product or your services, it all depends on your monetization model. And if you combine different types of monetization models, like, for example, services and SaaS, and maybe add some training and maybe add some enterprise distribution, for example, I think this provides differentiated view into differentiated opportunities for you. And I would also say another challenge for those who decide to go open source route is that it is hard to distinguish, it is hard to understand this path from adoption to revenue. Because, as I said, anyone can download whatever you are doing, but it's also, as I had experience in this, it's also solvable. So this connection of the dots between, who has adopted it and who can pay me, it's also solvable. If you, for example, put some unintrusive messages into your product, even if it's like a few lines of code, people still see the code. And if you put this stuff like, in my case, I launched a campaign. It's called Percona Squad. Like, if you are reading this message, you can join our Percona Squad and get a particular content that no one else can get access to, as well as like deals. We can provide you with deals, and what's most important, you can get a free swag if you
Mm,
put your corporate email. So I started testing this like 2 years ago, and it still brings us every day a lead or two is coming from our product. And if you put your corporate email, you get swag. So it's a very, very high quality leads for us. So yeah, among other things is building a community, because open source is a community driven thing. So that's why a community team needs to be on your in your department,
mhm.
so they can bring more adoption to your product. And yeah, I guess these are the main challenges that we
Yeah,
face.
yeah, for sure. And you mentioned monetization, so that I think that's one of the ones that is talked about the most when it comes to open source. So you talked a little bit about how to tackle that challenge of identifying who these people are that
Yeah.
are downloading the software by giving them incentives to give their information, right, swag and so on. But how about when it comes to monetization? What are some of the tactics that you've tried that have been successful in moving people over the edge, right, and getting them to move from a user of the open source product to the paid product?
Well, we usually use the same set of tactics as you mentioned, as you would use for any other product. We consider open source adopters being like a top of the funnel. And
Mm,
then when they are in the funnel, we first of all, there is this campaign of like, okay, let's get you to the squad, and then we will communicate with you. As well as there are other tactics, like we run ebook campaigns in social. It brings a lot of leads to our door, as well as we do like third party sponsorships and a lot of thought leadership. Another thing that we have been doing since the beginning of Percona's inception, since 2006, um, and it is a blog that we are running on our website. And actually, half of our website traffic and the conversion, like overall website traffic and following conversions, are coming from the blog. And the
wow.
blog is very unique in a way that it is written by our internal experts,
Mm.
and these are the experts that are actually doing services. They provide services for our customers. So we are kind of killing one bird, two birds with one stone with this. So we are showing, giving the developers who are able to adopt the software some content that allows them to solve their challenges. And we are showcasing our expertise by this. And it's free. You just write stuff and you publish on the blog. So the old content marketing still works, and organic is the key.
That's really cool. I love that that strategy of bringing your internal experts to the table and having them develop content. And these are the people that end up providing the services as well. So the credibility that they build in that process, is really, really cool. You're kind of touching on it here, but I wanted to unpack this a little bit more. Developers in general are just known to be really hard to market to, right? They're kind of, I like
Yeah.
to say they're allergic to marketing and sales, right? They kind of want to figure things out on their own. They don't like to be bothered, especially if something is overly salesy and marketing-y, right? Like it really turns them off and they do not want any part of it, right?
Mhm.
So you talked about the blog and like that content, and it seems like that's almost like marketing in disguise, right? It's, a thought leader and so on. But what are some of the other things that you've done, or tactics or strategies that you found that have been really valuable or successful in marketing and selling to that community of developers?
Yeah. So I think marketing to developers is connected very closely with the community. management. Here we want to make sure that we communicate with the developers on a technical level that is technically accurate, and that we provide them with as many self-serve resources and such things that they can just, take it and start using it. One of the things that my team as extended team, community team is doing, we are doing a lot of events
Mm.
that are community focused. That's where the database community is hanging out. It's like Postgres events, MySQL events, and the engagement that is happening there helps bring the awareness about the software forward, and it just goes from there. People just adopt it. And another thing that I think is important for the developer marketing is the presence on the platforms where these developers are getting the software from. So Docker, and like maybe AWS marketplaces, somewhere where they can just, put your name in and just grab it, download it. And that's how you get more adoption, and then more opportunities to sell. But I would also mention that depending on the monetization strategy that you have, developers might not be the main audience that you would serve the selly kind of messaging. You wouldn't do this anyway, because that's, that we don't do this lately, right? Because we are all certified product marketing managers. You don't
Mhm.
talk about this with the audience that's not ready to buy. But what I think is important for developers to know at this stage when they are adopting something is that there are paid services available if you, for example, are doing monetization through services. Because what I've been hearing on the interviews with our customers is that more and more the decisions about something to add to your stack, something new that developers adopted themselves, the decision is made collectively. So basically, developers come to the table as well as their uh, database administrators, network administrators, and all the team, the IT team, is discussing like whether a particular software is fit for their needs. And when it comes to open source software, if you adopt it for your environment, you need to have a few checkboxes checked. Such as support that you need to have in order to use it. So developers should be aware of how you monetize things, but not necessarily be the main buyer.
Makes total sense. Cool. That's super interesting. Again, like this is a new space to me, so I was really interested in unpacking it. And now shifting gears a little bit to a space that I'm a little bit more familiar with, sales enablement. We talk a lot on this podcast about sales enablement, sales content, particularly sales collateral. But I've seen you talk about something that I haven't had as much experience in. Maybe because I've worked at smaller companies, but I think at mid-size and larger companies, this becomes really, really important, especially when you have larger sales teams that you're supporting, and that's sales confidence. And I think you spoke at the GTM 25 event about sales confidence surveys. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what is sales confidence, how do you measure it, and why is it so important to measure this particular set of metrics, I guess.
Of course. And Justin, this has been my passion, the subject of many talks recently, and I'm currently working on my book around it. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and also the event was amazing, and it's been a second one over the last 2 years. So amazing lineup, and again, as an ex salesperson, I guess that's how I know that it's hard to hit quota, it's hard to stay focused, it's hard to stay motivated to, to get the stuff going, and also you feel pressure about the pipeline. And I think that with this in mind, as product marketing managers, we can be the allies to the sales team in order to them feel more enabled, to feel more confident about, like, okay, we have everything we need to win this deal, we can take down the competitor, and we can, bring this home. And so one way, I think, is to support them, is to be this ally, right? And when it comes to sales confidence, so what is sales confidence? I think it's I would call it a metric that we use to measure this sales confidence, which is knowledge, their confidence to sell, and their confidence to take down the competitor. And we kind of measure it and understand whether they are capable or not, or whether they need more support in one way or the other to, again, close the deal successfully. And so measuring sales confidence, really, I feel like it's very easy, because I have already created like a 6-step guide that will take you like from the first step of setting up the goal to the last step of creating a plan and actually implementing it within 30 hours of your time. So, and it's 30 hours is for like a team of 40 salespeople, sales and customer success people. So you can either shrink the the number of hours or increase them depending on the size of your team. And of course, you don't have to run a separate survey every quarter for a small team. You can, so maybe in my book, I can dive deep into that and tell you more about that later as I talk to my fellow PMMs. But yeah, so it's pretty easy. It's 6 steps, and I provide all the templates and everything you need to get started. And it's a very replicable process. So you run the survey, you communicate with sales, and then, based on the survey findings, you kind of unpack what you've figured out in the survey. And then you create a plan that you will be implementing depending on like what your cadence is, maybe like in every 6 months or every year. You would measure again this sales confidence, and you just put your plan into action. And I also am sharing in my guides that you can find on Google, like the first 3 results. If you Google sales confidence survey, you will find my guides, or you can just Google on Medium, and you will find my guides as well. I would say, I also share some examples that I've myself already tested of something that you can implement on your end and see like immediate results. And one of the examples that I would say I find most effective, and if I were asked to choose one, is like what's new presentation. It's something that we do for our sales team every other quarter, or sometimes every quarter, depending on how many things we have on the product side, on collateral side. And we just can come to the sales teams meetings, and we talk about like what's happened on the product side and what new resources that they have available. And they find this very helpful for them to get access to the recent collateral, because sometimes when you send a sales newsletter, for example, or communicate in Slack, it is hard for them to find what they need when they need it. So if there is a place for them to, first of all, listen to us, what we have to say, but also share what they also want to hear and see from us, I think finding this platform for both teams to share is very, very important for enablement. And yeah, so
that's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
No, it's a really interesting topic, and I can totally see the value of measuring it, and as you said, becoming an ally to the sales team by making sure that they're feeling confident with everything that's coming their way, right? Because they're in the deals day to day, trying to make their quotas, and they don't have the time to necessarily stay on top of everything that's coming down the pipe. So measuring that level of confidence and identifying maybe the key challenges and coming up with those solutions for those challenges is key. Um, I guess a question for you is how often should you be running these surveys? Are there particular times? You mentioned sort of like maybe every quarter, every 6 months. Is it like a period of time like that, or are there specific events that trigger the need for a sales confidence survey, like a new product launch or a big user conference or anything like that? What's a good cadence for running these surveys? And also, you mentioned maybe like how much time it could take to run one of these surveys. But on the other side, what about the resources? Like, could a solo product marketer run one of these surveys, or for a team of 40 salespeople, or do you need sort of a team of three, like you said you have? Like, yeah, what's a good amount of resources to be able to run a survey like this?
Yeah, so even though I have a team of three, I own this project
Hmm.
myself, and this is my like 30 hours. So from start to finish, again, things are already in place, like survey template for communication as well. So, and cadence of communication with the sales team, so you get the fill rate that you need. For example, for 40 people, I tend to have a goal of 85% fill rate, but I usually almost have like 100% because of
Well,
the cadence and the tactics that I also share. Again, free for everyone. You can just Google. And so I would say you don't need like a ton of people to run this. The only time when I ask for my team to step in is when I have, for example, have calls with like EMEA sales or
hmm.
America sales, and I'm not in the time zone with them at the moment. I ask my team to, as one of the steps, is to follow up with the teams on and showcase the results, like preliminary results of the survey, and to ask them like, okay, unpack, like, what do you need? Like, for example, BDRs will need something different from customer success teams.
Hmm.
That's why I ask my team to follow up. But it's definitely easy to replicate by if you are a solo PMM. And I think it will bring you, sometimes if you're a solo PMM, you may also have a small sales team, because
Hmm.
I see the
Yep.
correlation, right? Um, in this case, you don't need like a huge survey. You just need a few questions and one call with your one solo salesperson, and that's how it goes. So maybe you will not need like 30 hours. But in terms of the cadence and when to run, so usually for the teams of like 10 people, it's like every 6 months or
Okay.
up to every year, because it depends on. It's one thing to measure; it's another thing to implement stuff
Hmm.
that you have come from the survey results. Maybe there is something that you can implement ASAP, and the sales team will see the results as soon as possible, and you can like in next 6 months you can just measure it and report that it's been great, a great job and everything, and let's move on the next thing. Or you can just do it every quarter if you have a smaller team, and you can, you want to be more proactive and be there for them all the time. I do this every year because
Hmm.
of how many people I have on the team,
Hmm.
and because of how much time it takes to implement all the things or most of the things that they've asked. But yeah, it can be uh, depending on your team size and goals that you have. And I would also say that you need to run the survey, when the new quarter starts, simply because the team will be focused on the pipeline and closing deals at the end of the quarter, and we need the most of the attention of the team. So I suggest you run it in the beginning.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I was going to ask, maybe you can touch on this as well. The biggest challenges that you've found running these surveys. I thought maybe it might be sales participation, but it sounds like you're getting near 100% participation. So that's amazing. And again, it might be some of the tactics that you just mentioned, right? Doing it at the beginning of the quarter versus the end of the quarter and things like that. But yeah, what are some of the big obstacles that if somebody's like going to be running this for the first time, right? Now they've got your playbook, they're ready to go. what are some things that they just need to be aware of, right? Like some obstacles that will likely come in their way, and how should they approach overcoming those obstacles?
Yeah, so Justin, what you said about like them not filling in the survey is the biggest challenge.
Hmm.
And so what I have to say here is that when you start communicating with the sales team, and that's, you can find it in my cadence. So I call it pre-communication. So you let them know that it's coming, that you will be asking for their time, and you state what exactly is going to change in their lives and how it's going to be better when they just, start filling the survey. And then you communicate every week or every 2 weeks, depending on the size of your team and depending on how fast they fill things in. You would show them, okay, here's what we found already, and here's what we're going to do. So be proactive in your communication and show them that their thoughts, their feedback matters. Because what I found also, from my experience of being a salesperson and marketing person, is that this feud of sales and marketing, sales versus marketing, exists in organizations when sales is not given the platform
Hmm.
to vent, to tell like what they need. And I think this survey and this whole project can be a platform for them. And I should also say that another challenge is that there is a lack of trust when you run the first survey, because like sometimes no one before you have ever talked to these people. And you should establish a little bit of trust. And maybe your first survey, if no one has ever done this in this organization, maybe the first survey you can run anonymously if you have a big team, um, so as to establish trust. What else can establish trust is when you follow up on things that you've learned, and when you show, okay, here's the plan that I'm going to implement within this time frame. So be there for them and communicate with them. I also know that how sales teams can be um, frustrated about not having like a particular asset in place and so on.
Hmm.
When you communicate proactively and say, okay, here's the plan that we have and we are going to implement it like in this and this and this time frame, they're more willing to wait, and they're more like, okay, these people got it. So yeah, like closing this feedback loop is very, very important. And yeah.
Awesome. No, that's lots of great advice there. I think
Mhm.
one of the key things that I take away from it is you got to bring sales in to have some ownership in this, right? If they feel like they're just participants in this study, they're not going to be engaged, right? But if you bring them in, you listen to them, you
Yeah.
make them feel like they're being heard, and then you deliver on their requests and their feedback. You start to build that trust, right? Where these sort of surveys and sales enablement in general just becomes easier, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you build the bridge between these two teams. So makes
Yeah.
total sense. I know we covered a lot of ground today. Obviously, we could go even more into this stuff, but it sounds like you have an amazing guide that we'll link to in the show notes, so that listeners can get a handle on the guide. And then it sounds like you have a book coming out as well. So if folks that are listening to this and they're really interested in these topics, they want to dig deeper, they want to follow you along in your journey, eventually get your book, where's the best place for them to follow you?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I have my Medium blog, which has a few guides on like both sales enablement and agile and marketing, and even how you can prioritize your tasks with simple Excel spreadsheets. So the listeners can just add me on LinkedIn and follow me on Medium, and yeah, feel free to reach out at any time. And maybe one more thing I wanted to note is that when you listen to go-to-market team, to sales team, it pays off, because sometimes most of the times they have a lot to say and they just don't know who to bring it to. And one of the recent things that happened almost a year ago with my team is that I've been on these calls with sales, and we realized that there's actually more than one path to adoption of our services, of our paid offerings, than just through software, like to go through this whole like pipeline of from adoption to consideration and so on. So we realized in conversations with sales that there is another path. So some organizations already know what they want to fix, like they have a database outage, or they want to prepare for like traffic spike in their database, or they have like performance issues. And we by listening to sales, we started creating the web pages on our website about these use cases, so how we can like literally answer to their challenges. And it has become a very, very like a cornerstone of our website in terms of like organic lead income. So listen to your sales team, give them the place to vent, and the return on investment will be very fast.
Awesome. No, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because it just points out that salespeople are also an amazing source of information, right? These are the people dealing with customers, every day. They understand the market and the trends almost more than anybody else, right? So it's not just product marketing pushing information through the sales team, but also a really amazing opportunity to get that information. That all starts with just creating a bridge between the two teams and a place for the two teams to communicate and share right with one another. And I think that's critical for any go-to-market team success. So, Sasha, thanks so much for coming on, for sharing your insights with us. We'll share the show notes or share the link to your guide in the notes and to your Medium as well. And it sounds like you have a lot of exciting things coming up. So best of luck to you. And thanks again for your time today.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you for having me on the show.